I won't be the very best. No one ever was. Oh, hello. Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. Good Tuesday to all of you. The Jaybefaunt channel is available on all major podcast platforms. So go ahead and subscribe to me there. Also part of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. So you can find me there on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays typically. So you guys can go ahead and subscribe there as well. As you guys all know, my name is James Fauntleroy. As you can see so clearly here, good to see all of you here on this beautiful afternoon. Today is December 12th, 2023. Only 12 more days until Christmas Eve, 13 more days until Christmas, which is kind of interesting to note. I don't know why I brought that up. It just came into my brain, but you guys, that's what you guys like about me, right? You guys like how my brain just goes in different directions. But if you guys have not already, you guys can go to my Substack to get email notifications. So whenever I go live, upload clips, or write articles, you guys can go to jaybefaunt.substack.com for that as well. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to push me out into the algorithm for that Jaybefaunt deliciousness. Don't forget to share and subscribe as well. So thank you so very much to all of you. Now, just as an aside, just to let you guys know, I will be getting into another book soon. I gotta make my way to the library to see if I can check it out, because I can't afford to buy it right now. But that's what libraries are for. So I'm gonna try to see if I can get to the library for my next book. But as well, I will be continuing the reading of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. So I will be trying to get that out later this week. So thank you so very much for all your diligent patience to everybody who's watching. As per usual, like I always do, because I'm just that type of guy, we're going to go ahead and say hello to everybody that's inside the chat, that's giving a wave, giving a hello, giving a blow kiss, honey. That's exactly what it's all about. And so we're going to start off with CBC Voter saying happy Tuesday at JB. CBC Voter, so good to see you in the chat. Serena coming in saying, greetings, comrades. I guess Ted got to write casting Hasbro as the villain, eh? Oh, I guess Ted 2 got it right, casting Hasbro as the villain. You know what? I didn't get to see that entire movie. I don't even remember. Wait, have I watched all of Ted? I don't think I got to watch. I think I kind of watched it. I was kind of like in and out. But Hasbro is the villain. Huh. Interesting. I'm gonna have to start that and come back to it a little bit later. I'm gonna come back to that comment, Serena, because I think that's interesting. All right, we have Dwayne coming in saying howdy, y'all. Good to see you, Dwayne. Dwayne. Sorry, that was my Willie Gilbert. Anyway, Amanda coming in saying hi, Amanda. Cowboy Kitty says to catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause. Sorry, man. Okay, so just as an aside, yes, I am an older millennial, but no, when it comes to Pokemon, when they first started playing here in the United States, gosh, I think I was just starting high school when it started playing in the United States. And the funny part about it is, and I don't know why I got this song stuck in my head, but when I first started watching it, it seemed kind of cool. I was just like, oh man, this is a cool concept. But then here's how immature I was. I noticed that little kids were watching it, and I stopped watching it because I was like, little kids are watching it. I'm like 14 years old, and I'm like, elementary school kids are watching it. Now I don't want to watch it anymore. And so I stopped watching it. And so the whole like fanfare around it that grew, that everybody was a part of, I missed out. I never played the game or anything like that. What part of it? Because I never had a Game Boy because, well, growing up poor, you couldn't afford things like that. So, anywho, moving on. Abeg says hi. Good to see you in the chat as well. Miguel coming in saying peace. Hey, you remember Martin on his show when Pam would go, Peace. Oh my gosh, that just reminded me of that. Sorry. I'm living in my nostalgia days right now. Seeing what's going on with Hasbro got me in my nostalgia feels right now. So just, bear with me for a little bit, y'all. All right, we have John Kemper up in here. Blue Marvel Adam, but shit. Good to see you in here. Jacqueline, good to see you. Jacqueline, you're such a sweetheart, Jacqueline. Good to see you in here. Extra Boya coming in saying, live long and live long and prosper. That's right. Yeah. Extra Boya, maybe you should dress up as Spock for Halloween. At least just do the ears. What do you think about that? Anyway. Good to see you. All right. And we're going to end off with Bryce coming in saying, sup, JB. Good to see you, Bryce. All right. So, what are we going to be talking about today? So, we got 3 stories that we're going to talk about today. 1, 2, 3. Unos, dos, tres. What we're getting into. So, our primary story that's going to be today is going to be no permanent ceasefire. Huge. No permanent ceasefire. So that's what Bernie Sanders said. We're going to get into that. And people are now realizing what everybody like me and RBN and Sappy Sabs and a lot of us on the left have been saying about Bernie Sanders, but they didn't want to hear it. But now they're hearing it loud and clear. So we're going to talk about that. In conjunction with that story, we're going to be talking to this person. I'm trying not to cuss, but I would really want to cuss this guy out. Justifying genocide. We're going to be talking about this person and the lies that have been told by this person. I'm really trying not to cuss here, but we're going to talk about that. But our first story we're going to be talking about is massive job loss. Uh-oh, Hasbro, what's going on with there? Hasbro is kicking people out of work. Transformers, robots in disguise. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. Hasbro. Hasbro's been a name in toys for decades. And as somebody who was a child of the 80s and the early 90s, I have had Hasbro toys growing up. Of course, I had Optimus Prime. Way back in the day, I had Thrust and Starscream. And then for some reason, I lost them. And then I came into Optimus Prime. And then I have Megatron. But I didn't just have Megatron, which is the P-38 Special. I had the tank Megatron with the tank missile launcher on the shoulder. That's the Megatron I had. The one that was green and purple that he transformed into it. Oh, it was beautiful. And then I had the Optimus Prime with the voice that said, I am Optimus Prime. It was great. It was wonderful. It was just like, and the thing is that my uncles had brought it for me. They, I was living here in Florida and they had the toys sent down to me. Jeez Louise, sweet memories. But as we know, there was an article that just came out recently about Hasbro. And they are letting people go. And so my question is, before we get into the article, my question is, with all the adults that are now my age, that are millennials, and with all of us now basically propping up the toy market, how in the world is Hasbro? How is Hasbro doing this? Right? Because there's a lot of us that are now buying toys as millennial adults. Let's take a look at this because it just confuses me. So I want to share this really quick. So let's take a look down memory lane and then let's talk.
I don't want to grow up on a Toys R Us kid. They got a million toys at Toys R Us that I can play with.
Everybody knows the song. It's that classic 80s commercial for Toys R Us. And it turns out a kid can always be a kid.
It's true. There's a growing trend that finds more and more adults buying toys for themselves. The group being called Kidults, and it's proving to be a very big business.
And our kid at heart, NBC News Now anchor Joe Fryer is here with more. This is a thing, huh?
Yeah, good morning. I don't want to grow up either. You know, new data is showing that people aged 12 and older, those are kidults, 12 and older, they now make up at least a quarter of toy consumers. And the industry's cashing in with new products marketed specifically toward millennials, even Gen Xers.
He's a Lego maniac.
Toys of Christmas past are now revisiting many in their adulthood. From adult Happy Meals
Here are the fries. And then a toy.
Totally hair Barbie.
to Barbie, who's starring in a new movie coming out next summer. Nostalgia is a driving force for a growing consumer group called the Kidults. CNBC reports that data from market research company NPD Group show adults who are young at heart spend about $9 billion annually.
Having adult money and being able to shop toys.
Jenny New got into Legos about 6 years ago when the Disney.
First of all, let me say this. If you're an adult and you can afford to buy toys right now in this economy, I think you're doing all right. Number one. But $9 billion? Now, I'm not against adults buying toys. In fact, I am all for it. My thing is, some of y'all can afford toys? Wait, what? Who of you can afford? Look, I would live to be able to get a Legos Star Wars Star Destroyer to put it together, but I can't. Who are you able to? How are y'all able to afford this? Because my ass is broke. Do y'all know how much eggs? Look, I just did a story on RBN on Sunday. They've been overcharging us for chicken. And some of y'all got y'all hands on a Skip It. Some of y'all got your hands on the Crossfire. Some of y'all got hands on that. What? Some of y'all got your hands on a Hungry Hippo? How? Am I that broke? Well, shit, don't answer that question. But I'm just saying, $9 billion? Some of y'all out here secretly got money that I don't even know about. Either that or some of y'all selling off or buying out some of your 401k or whatever y'all do with a 401k. Taking it out. Anywho, I love Legos back in the day, by the way. But anyhow, am I a little envious of this lady? Yes. Do I wish I can buy Legos right now? Absolutely. But even if I could, I still wouldn't have time for it. Between dialysis, doing this channel, RBN, trying to do work on the ground and mutual aid, I ain't got no time for no damn Legos. I wish I did, though. Anywho, let's continue. I'll sulk later.
The fan laid eyes on a special Disney castle set.
They're really good at catering to adults. I think basically they're aiming for the nostalgic thing.
Now, as a new mom, it's how she decompresses.
I find building Legos to be like my alone time, and then also practice my patience.
The sets come in collectible series like the annual Lunar New Year Legos or investment pieces like the Millennium Falcon, each paired with thick manuals best deciphered by grown-up
I need that.
Over the past 2+ years, adults really started to gravitate towards toys and games, not just to spend more time with their families, which they were doing at home, but also for themselves to de-stress.
Aaron Muterick is a former software engineer.
Hang on. Some of us millennials are going to therapy. Some of us are. But some of us can't afford therapy, so we have to just go outside and buy a toy. Some of us millennials want to lay on the couch and talk about our problems to a counselor. But because we can't afford it, it's better just to spend $25, $30 on a Lego set and de-stress with that. Or spend money on, spending $35 on, a PS4, PS5 game, Horizon Forbidden West. Maybe spend a couple extra dollars on the DLC and play that for a few hours to decompress. And it plays on our nostalgia. Man, they really got us by the neck. Anywho.
Former software engineer turned connoisseur of putty. He says grown-ups are stuck on reliving simpler times from their childhood.
I think there is some level of nostalgia. Putty was introduced in the late 1950s to children. We've seen it time and again where adults maybe think it is for children, but then once they touch the putty that their children have, they want one for themselves.
He created a colorful and non-messy putty that can help some people dealing with anxiety.
The first 10 years, I targeted specifically adults that work in offices, people that sit at desks, for stress relief, for fidgets and anxiety.
Over the past year, the Kidult Group represented 60% of the dollar growth in the toy industry, despite accounting for only a quarter in sales. And toy manufacturers like Lego, Hasbro, and Mattel are tapping into nostalgia by creating products tied into movies like Star Wars and Marvel, and classics like Hot Wheels. A whole new market for a group of adults embracing playtime again.
I just feels like I've accomplished something. It's like art.
Oh, Joey love.
Man. Jeez Louise.
This. We love this concept. Are there categories, like top categories for these kiddos?
Yeah, and it's stuff you'd expect and maybe stuff you wouldn't expect. So at top of the list, you have board games.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we all know we play board games with our kids or as adults with our parents. So that's not surprising. But then you get into like fan or collectible items. And that is when you're
Now, as far as board games, a lot of people have been playing Monopoly now. By the way, did you guys know Monopoly, the game, was actually to share with people how ridiculous capitalism is? The originator of Monopoly actually created it to show how horrible capitalism really is. And the funny part is there's always this narrative that goes around when people talk about playing Monopoly with their families and how it causes families to be pissed off at each other, to not talk to each other for weeks, because of how the game is played and how you get to a point where, like, there's two games I know that cause fights between families and friends. It's Monopoly and Uno. Hell, we can get down on some spades and trash talk on some spades, but Uno, it's over. Like, Uno will ruin relationships. Anyway, so the same thing with Monopoly. And that's the funny part. But then it talks about board games, and then it talks about fans or collectible items. If any of you guys know or watch anything that's within the nerdosphere, right? The sphere of nerds, there's these little things called Funko Pops. And they'll have Star Wars Funko Pops, Marvel Funko Pops, DC Funko Pops, Harry Potter Funko Pops, so on and so forth. So then you also have to get the collector's items. So you go to some of these comic book shops, a lot of the ones that are, especially in the malls and places like that, you find those too. So yeah. So that's what I mean by the collector items. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who are into anime, this could be one stuff like the models, like the mech models, like Gundam and stuff like that. You know, so I should show you guys one of my models. A friend of mine made it for me, but hang on, I'm gonna show y'all real quick because that's so that everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know if I have it here. Yep, I got it right here. Oh, it's under stuff. Hang on. Yes, I have this. And no, I do not. I don't care. Oh, God. So, yeah. So, let me share with you guys this. So, if you guys are familiar with Gundam Wing, so, yeah. My friend built this for me. So when they talk about fans or collectibles, this is the type of stuff that they're talking about, right? So this is from Gundam Wing, Mobile Suit Gundam Wing. This is Epion. So yeah. And yeah, he has also a sword too, and also more stuff. But yeah. So, and then it transforms into a dragon. Yeah. I don't bring it out hardly, but it's really cool. So yeah. So just if anybody's curious about collectibles, you know, fan or collectible items, things like this, and then you put it up, you can put it up in a case or something like that, and then you you know, have it displayed, you know. So that's what. So just to share that with you guys. Anyways, let's continue.
You're talking about Star Wars type things, or maybe anything from the superhero movies, or maybe things that just you buy that is a toy from your childhood that reminds you of your childhood. It makes you feel good. And then, of course, you also have puzzles. To me, that's sort of the same category as like Legos, the things that help you relax, and feel more mindful. So
What would be your go-to?
I love a light bright. That's always been.
I don't know what it is about Hold Up Copy, but she reminds me of Kamala Harris. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Anyways, so a lot of these things that we are nostalgic about is because we wish for a simpler time, because a lot of us especially who are millennials, we feel the floor, you know, falling out from underneath us, especially within the system. So a lot of us, we buy toys so that we can feel like we're back in a simpler, less stressful time. So this is why a lot of us do this. This is why a lot of us millennials are so cool with video games, right? I find myself playing some Mega Man from time to time. You know what I mean? So that's the point. But one of the reasons why I brought this up was because even though there are a lot of us adults right now, adults that are purchasing these toys and really propping up a lot of companies like Hasbro, unfortunately for them, they did lose money. So let me share this really quick so you guys can see. This is the Hasbro revenue from 2022. So it's $5.86 billion. It says in 2022, Hasbro generated net revenues amounting to approximately $5.86 billion, marking a decrease of more than $560 million from the previous year. Hasbro is an American toy and games manufacturer headquartered in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. All right. So they did lose some money, right? $560 million. However, here is the, you didn't need to lay off that many people. And why do I say that? It's because ultimately you're doing it primarily for your shareholders and you're not doing it for your workers. And these corporations, they never ever do anything really for their workers. It's always for the shareholders. So let's get into the article here. So this is out of your Orlando Sentinel. It says Hasbro cuts 1,100 jobs or 20% of its workforce, prompted by the ongoing malaise in the toy business. It says toy maker Hasbro said on Monday it's cutting about 1,100 jobs or 20% of its workforce as the malaise in the toy business exceeds through another holiday shopping season. Now, mind you, we're literally in the holiday shopping season. If they are letting people go, that means that they're trying to have a better fourth quarter. The problem is that they are trying to have higher fourth quarter projections, but they don't foresee that happening in the near future. So in order to kind of prop it up, and what they're doing, cutting people out during the holiday season. So then even though they're making more money from toy sales, they're also not paying out as many people during this time. So they get to keep more revenue, which more revenue goes not to the workers, but it goes to the, say it with me, shareholders. Okay. That's basically what it is. So let's continue. It says nearly a centuries-old Rhode Island company behind Monopoly, Play-Doh, and My Little Pony toys disclosed the layoffs in a memo to employees published in a regulatory filing. The Wall Street Journal first reported the news. The company said that the reductions are on top of 800 job cuts that have been taken so far in 2023 as part of moves announced last year to save up to $300 million annually by 2025. As of year end 2022, the company said it had 6,490 employees. Like many toy companies, Hasbro is struggling with a slowdown in sales after a surge during pandemic lockdowns when parents were splurging on toys to keep their children busy. So that's the problem. It's like all these parents, they got these kids with all this time on their hands. So it's like, well, here's the toy, you know? And so because you had to spend all your time inside, well, guess what? You had to have something to take that time. And, you know, an iPad can only do so much. You know, a tablet can only do so much, right? Watching a streaming service can only do so much. When you're a kid, you gotta touch stuff. You gotta you know, work those motor skills and, you know, play with toys and stuff like that. So that's what parents did, and that was the cheapest thing that they could do. So it was toys. So yeah. Let's continue here. It says, like many toy companies, Hasbro is struggling with a slowdown in sales. Let me see. Last holiday, many toy companies had to slash prices to get rid of merchandise due to weak demand. And the challenges have continued. Toy sales in the US were down 8% from January through August, based on Circana's most recent data. The market headwinds are anticipated to have to be stronger and more persistent than planned. So that was from Chris Cox, Hasbro CEO. While we made some important progress across our organization, the headwinds we saw through the first 9 months of the year have continued into holiday and were likely to persist into 2024. Cox said the toy maker will focus on fewer, bigger brands, gaming, digital, and our rapidly growing direct-to-consumer and licensing businesses. Shares of Hasbro Inc. fell almost 6% in aftermarket trading on Monday. So they are just, it hasn't been a good year, because here's the problem. People like, gosh, I don't even want to say his name because I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, but I'll just use his first name, Chris. Chris Cox. I'm so so one of the things that he has a duty to is a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders. The fiduciary responsibility is not to the workers. It never is, and that's how corporations work. And so, and I spoke about this on Sunday on RBN, but in order for a corporation to be successful, it has to have growth. Making the same last year as you did this year is still considered a failure in business, even though you're doing well financially, and even maybe your workers are doing better financially. If you don't make more year over year, it's still considered a failure. And that increase has to be dealt out to the shareholders. And so if the shareholders aren't making more, the shareholders aren't happy. If the shareholders aren't happy, well, then it's considered a failure. And so because of that, then that's what we see in regards to Hasbro. It's like, okay, well, how do we make more money for our shareholders? Well, we could increase prices, but then that's going to have a negative effect on us. We could buy up more toy companies, but they already have a big market already, a big market share, so they can only do so much in that arena. So what's the next thing? Job cuts. So that's what they do. And so in order to keep more revenue into the hands of the shareholders, the crazy part about it is this is the problem with capitalism, is that the shareholders aren't the ones who are building the toys. They're not even the one that are making the toy designs. It's the workers. But ultimately, who gets shafted? It's the workers. And somebody can come and say, well, shareholders, they take a risk because they're putting your money into a company and then they can lose that money, blah, blah, blah. Yes, they put that money into the company. But here's the crazy part about it. Shareholders are taking an even less risk than a worker. How? Because all they do is, let's say I have $1,000 and I put it into shares into Hasbro. And if I lose that $1,000, well, that's $1,000 that I lost, that I had extra outside of what I actually needed. Versus somebody who's a worker, if they get fired, then guess what? They ain't eating and they ain't living. So it's actually worse for workers. So the people who have the most to lose are workers. And as it goes to show, over 1,000 Hasbro workers have just lost. Because growth, baby. That's capitalism. So one of the things that I wanted to also bring out is the shareholders. Well, shareholders and CEOs, they're doing all right. Let's take a look. So here is Hasbro. This is on salary. This is for 2022. And if you can see, it's in blue is equity, light blue is cash compensation, and yellow is other. Here's Chris. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's go to this is yeah. So Chief Financial Officer, the CFO, Deborah Thomas, is getting over $6 million a year in compensation, right? Chairman of the board, former interim chief executive officer, got $270,000. Let me see. Yeah, here's Chris Cox, $9 million. The CEO is getting $9 million a year. But we got to cut those jobs. We got to cut them, right? Former chief operating officer got $6 million. President and Chief Operating Officer, Wizards of the Coast and Digital Gaming, over $6 million. That's Cynthia Williams. Former Chief Executive Officer for E1, Darren Throp, $10 million. So that was ending the fiscal year of last year. They seem to be doing okay. And here's the crazy part. A lot of that money that they're getting is in equity, which means stock options and things like that. Which means they're also shareholders. But there's a major shareholder that people don't really talk about. I just want to share this really quick. Let me see. This is from Hasbro's own website. I want you guys to see. Hasbro, this is their ownership profile. So this is from Hasbro. I want you guys to go. I want to show you guys who's the top owner, top holders. What does that say, everybody? What does that say? You guys know where I'm going with this, right? So, the top owner of Hasbro is Vanguard, the company that owns a little piece of everything around the world, pretty much. Vanguard. Oh, wait. Here's this. Take a look here. BlackRock. Right there, too. So, Vanguard owns over 11%. BlackRock owns over 5%. And then State Street right underneath it also owns over 5%. Look, there's Citadel. 2%. So when they fire or lay off people, it's for people like BlackRock. Because that money that they retain from not having those workers, it goes into the hands of companies like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. That's ultimately where it goes. So ultimately, whenever you have layoffs, it's really just for the ultra rich. It's not because they actually can't afford anything. It's because the people who are owning the means of production that aren't creating any of the value, they're the ones that actually get a majority of the money. And that's how it ultimately ends up. We get screwed, and then they reap the benefits. So that's what's going on with Hasbro. So yeah, I just want to bring you guys that story. If you guys have not, please make sure to like the stream. That pushes me out into the algorithm. Thank you so very much. Yeah. Very interesting, right? So if you guys have not, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to go to the chat. So let me, oh, and by the way, while I'm saying this, just so that you guys know, this is one of the reasons why I really just am against private equity owning these companies. In fact, I think private equity really, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm going to sound a little too radical, but I think private equity should be outlawed in owning a lot of these companies. In fact, I think the right, I think it's called the right to first refusal. But I think that these companies should be worker owned. Companies that aren't essential to survival as us as human beings with this country, I think they should be worker owned. It's just like if you ask me about healthcare, things like that, energy, utilities, things like that, well, then I think they should be community owned, whether that's community nationally or statewide or municipally. Yeah. But when it comes to things that are non-essential, like a toy company, I think that they should be worker-owned. Because ultimately, the people who are going to either benefit or be marginalized due to the decisions of the company are going to be the workers, not the shareholders. So therefore, the wins and the losses should be gained by the workers exclusively, in my opinion. Anywho, let's hit the chat. So I started this earlier. Serena says, greetings, comrade. I guess Ted 2 got it right, casting Hasbro as the villain. The shareholders definitely are the villain in this. That's honestly what I think. And, you know, like, and people will say, well, you can become a shareholder too. And I'm like, with what money? That's the issue. Like, I honestly think, yes, let the workers, you know, let Hasbro become a worker co-op. Let me see here. Jacqueline says, and the people who weren't made redundant will probably have to work twice as hard to make up for the shortfall in staff. Oh, thank you so very much. This is another good point. It was covered a few months ago, actually. It was Savvy Savs on her channel when she was talking about quiet hiring. So what is quiet hiring? And thank you so very much for reminding me about this, Jacqueline. Quiet hiring basically means when you cut your staff to what we like to call a skeleton crew. That skeleton crew basically is doing all the work that a normal crew should be doing. But because that skeleton crew can do all the work that a normal crew should be doing, the company sees that as, well, why are we going to hire more people when we could just keep the skeleton crew and have just as much work or output for less money? And so that's what they do. And so then the workers are becoming overworked, overstressed, and they're not being compensated for the amount of work that they're doing. So they're literally doing, 50% more, 100% more, 200% more of the work, but they're not really getting compensated for that amount of work. Like, say, for instance, if it's 4 people on a job and then you cut 2 people out and it's just me and that other person, so now we're doing the job of 4 people with only 2 people, then really you should be paying me that other person's salary on top of what I get. But they don't want to do that because then that means that they're going to be back to square one. So instead, they pay you the same salary, but they just make more demands of the work that you do. But on top of it, what they'll do is they will say to you, well, we're trying to hire, and you guys just have to do this just for a little while until you guys just have to bear the brunt just for a little while until we can actually get some new hires. And so what they'll do is they'll put out they want people to apply, or I wanted to say help wanted. That sounds so old school, but they'll put out, openings for the job. But because they have openings for the job, what they'll do is they'll interview, they'll take applications, but they'll never hire. And because they don't ever hire, that means that you keep doing the same job for less money over and over and over. And then they can claim, well, we just haven't found the right person yet. When in reality, they found a whole bunch of the right people. They just don't want you to know. And they also don't want to hire anybody because then that means there's more money they have to pay out. So that's basically the whole quiet hiring thing. So they're not actually hiring people. They're trying to make you think that they're going to hire somebody when in reality, they're just stringing you along so that you can keep doing double the work for less to pay. So yeah. Jenna says neoliberalism is a disease. Absolutely. Thank you so very much. Janice says shareholders are parasitic. They bring nothing to the company and just extract labor value from the company, which is lost for workers. Absolutely. Jenna says, I blame Funko Pops. Yeah. Okay, I'm back. I don't know why my internet goes out like that. But Nadia says salaries aren't usually, stocks have more to do with it. Thank you so very much for that. All right. Extra Boya says they cut pay coupled with government handouts, didn't do stock buybacks to increase the stock price. That is true. Also, that God, I don't know what's going on with my internet. Roger Meadow says nuclear best energy alternative to fight climate change. We can use cooperatively owned nuclear power by the community. Maybe best to prevent disasters since they're on front line. All right, thank you so very much for that, Roger. So yeah. So let me check the rock. All right, we're good there. So we're going to move on to our next story. So this dipshit justifying genocide. I got to talk about this guy. I don't like his face. I just don't. He just, ugh. I got to talk about him though. Mark Regev, who is a former diplomat and advisor to Netanyahu, was on Joy Reid's show recently, and he was basically justifying the genocide of the Palestinian people. So we're going to take a look at what he said. Shout out to Case Study QB for doing the damn thing. I don't Case, I don't know how you do it. I would be ready to throw my laptop at the wall because you doing the Lord's work here. Let's take a look at this, and we're going to be responding to this because this guy is just horrible. I don't even want to do this, to be honest with you. This guy gets on my damn nerves, but got to bring the news to you guys. So let's go.
After more than 2 months of Israeli attacks, health officials say the death toll in Gaza has now surpassed 18,000 people. Thousands more buried under the rubble and presumed dead. The Israeli Defense Forces estimate that 1,200 people were killed in the October 7 Hamas attack, with around 140 people still held captive in Gaza. Joining me.
18,000. We were screaming when it was 5,000. We were screaming at the top of our lungs. We were screaming at the top of our lungs when it hit 7. We were mortified when it hit 10,000. 18,000? How do you justify that? How do you justify the murder of over 18,000 civilians in 8 weeks. It's wild. Let's hear what this person has to say.
Now is Mark Regev, senior advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He was previously Israel's ambassador to the United Kingdom. Ambassador Regev, thank you for being here. It has been a long time, so thank you for your time this evening for you. Let's start with this, what I just began with. 18,000 dead so far in Gaza, tens of thousands injured. The U.S. media has estimated that 2,000-pound bombs are being dropped, some 22,000 of them in just over 6 weeks.
You guys, 2,000-pound bombs, 22,000 of them dropped in the last 6 weeks. That's not war, that's a genocide.
How has causing that much death and destruction, 80% of those dead estimated to be women and children, how does that achieve the goal of eradicating Hamas?
So, Joy, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come on the readout. It is appreciated. I know you've been a critic of Israeli behavior, and I appreciate the opportunity to make my case, and that is very much appreciated. Our goal in this operation is, of course, not to target Gaza civilians. Our goal is to target the Hamas military machine.
Bullshit lie number one. If that was the case, then there wouldn't have been over 18,000 dead. 80% of that dead of civilians are women and children. If your target is Hamas, you suck. You suck. Because if you wanted to, you could just do very targeted strikes. And by strikes, I mean getting special forces on the ground, go in there. But you'd rather just kill innocent civilians, which makes me wonder, was your goal actually Hamas, or was it all Palestinians? Let's continue.
We have to eliminate that machine because of the threat it poses to the civilian population of Israel. Israeli people simply refuse to live any longer next to this terror enclave in constant fear that terrorists will cross the border in the middle of the night and murder their children. That's the bottom line. We have to end Hamas's rule of Gaza.
But they're not targeting children. They're targeting military targets. A huge chunk of the targets that were hit on October 7th were military targets. And then on top of it, a lot of the people that were also among those that were targeted by Hamas on October 7th were people who were living in settlements that Hamas was targeting because they're illegally settling on their land. Emphasis on the word illegally, because by international law, the settling on a land of indigenous people and taking their land, that's illegal by international law. And the right to resist that illegal settlement is actually legal by international law. So when somebody is saying that, oh my God, Hamas attacked us, that's, if you steal my house, if you kick me out of my house and I come back and fight back against you, is that a wanton or an unprovoked attack? Me getting back into my house to kick you out of my house that you stole? Let's continue.
And may I ask how, I'll just re-ask again, how does killing 18,000, 80% of whom are women and children, about half of whom really are children, how does that achieve the goal of eliminating Hamas's military infrastructure?
Joy, can I urge you please to be a little bit circumspect of those numbers? They are put out by the Hamas-controlled Ministry of Health in Gaza. And therefore, you have to presume that Hamas has reasons for playing with the numbers. You know that.
Reasons for playing with the numbers. Oh, so 18,000. No. Hamas, they own the Ministry of Health. They're over the Ministry of Health. So that number of 18,000 is wrong. They couldn't have. No, we didn't kill that many people. That's what he's saying.
They were very cruel. They have no qualms whatsoever about killing people, innocent civilians. We saw that on October 7th. And so you can...
That's what they bring up every single time. October 7th, October 7th, October 7th. Meanwhile, this all started 75 years ago. But October 7th.
Presume also they have few qualms about killing the truth.
So are you saying that you do not agree with the United Nations agreeing with those numbers? Most human rights groups agree with those numbers. You're saying you're casting doubt on that 18,000 number?
Before he answers, yes, it's not just Hamas. It's not just the Palestinian Ministry of Health. It's also the United Nations and human rights organizations that are also saying, yeah, it was over 18,000. Come on, Marquis Mark. What do you got to say?
All I'm saying is we have to be very careful with numbers that are put out by Hamas. They would have you believe that they're all innocent civilians, while it's clear that Israel has been targeting Hamas operatives, Hamas terrorists, the Hamas infrastructure. Now, I have no doubt that there have been civilians caught up in the crossfire between the Israeli Defense Forces and the Hamas terrorists. Unfortunately, that's a reality of war. We as a democratic country want to keep those numbers as low as possible. But our job is made really difficult by the fact that Hamas has embedded itself under civilian areas, under neighborhoods, under mosques, under hospitals, even under schools, under UN facilities. Hamas, it's not just Israel says so, the United States has said so, the European Union, others. Hamas has adopted a strategy of using Gazan civilians as a human shield for its terror machine.
So, hang on, let me get this straight. You think, Mark thinks that the targeting of civilians is justified because we're just trying to get at Hamas. Even though you're literally murdering civilians who had nothing to do with this. And we're supposed to just accept that? Also, the extent of Israelis that were killed was October 7th was give or take about 1,200. The death toll has not went up since. Yet, the amount of deaths of Palestinians has been going up for over 8 weeks. So, who's the one committing genocide? Because as we see, it's extremely disproportionate.
Let me ask you this question. If you were to discover, the Israeli, military were to discover that Yahya Sinwar, who is the Hamas militant who planned the 10/7 attacks, was actually hiding in Israeli territory, hiding in a hospital there with his militants, with his men, would Israel drop 2,000-pound bombs on that hospital?
No, we'd probably, if it was inside Israel and we had control of the ground, we'd send in our special forces as we have in the...
Oh, so you would send special forces in. If it was in Israel, you would. Okay, all right. But you don't want to in Gaza because you somehow think that it's collateral damage. I want you guys to remember this dude right here does not consider the lives of Palestinians worth the same as a life of Israelis. If this was happening to Israelis, he would be screaming at the top of his lungs. But because it's Palestinians, their life doesn't matter as much. And let me go back just for a second.
If it was inside Israel and we had control of the ground.
If we have control of the ground. You mean to tell me y'all have control of Gaza? Yet you can cut off the fuel, food, water, and electricity into Gaza, but you don't have control over it? You don't have control over it, yet you can control humanitarian aid coming in and out. Mark, come on. You really take us for fools? Jeez, this guy.
We'd send in our special forces as we have in the past when you've got sort of terrorist situations, and we would eliminate him. And we've now.
And you would not do that in Gaza.
We have we have sent ground forces into Gaza. We're losing soldiers in very difficult firefights between us and the Hamas terrorists.
Yeah, because you got your asses handed to you in ground fights. That's why you guys are sticking to in the air and bombing Gaza. Because you guys, look, Hamas is giving them a 2-piece in the biscuit every single time they come around. That's what's going on. Because there's shit on the ground. Even Scott Ritter talked about it. They are horrible when it comes to ground fights. The only thing they know how to do is bomb from up in the air. So it has to be indiscriminate. Because, and here's the funny part. This is the 4th most powerful military in the world. It is a nuclear power. And yet, a band of militants, a band of paramilitary militants can kick your ass on the ground. And by the way, if you guys don't care about civilians by just indiscriminately bombing mosques, hospitals, refugee camps, and the like, then why not just use special forces to go in and take them out? But you guys want to just bomb everybody to oblivion. If you really cared about the lives of the Palestinian people and wanting to preserve as many lives as possible, y'all would have sent in special forces and kept sending them in. But you don't want to. Now, I'm not a military expert by no means, right? But I know that if you have an active shooter inside of a school, hospital, mall, whatever, you send in the SWAT team to extract that shooter. You don't bomb the school, the hospital, the mall in order to destroy it. If I have cancer, are you going to kill me just to get the cancer? Or are you going to surgically remove the tumor? Doesn't make sense. If I'm murdered, but then you say, oh, we got the tumor, how is that helping me? How is that helping the situation? Anyhow.
We will reach Sinwar. It's only a matter of time.
Let me show you a piece of video and take a look at it. This is a group of Palestinian men who were marched out of, per U.S. media, including CNN, UN facilities, placed on the ground in their underwear and displayed in this way. Who took these pictures, sir? And is this not a violation of the Geneva Conventions to display these men in this way?
So can I say that the reason they've been asked to strip, except for their underwear, is because Hamas, of course, has been one of the pioneers of the use of explosive vests. And we've had too much experience with people from Hamas blowing themselves up and in the process killing Israelis around them. And that we would ask people who have surrendered to strip off temporarily. That is a necessity of difficult combat with a terrorist group that has used this tactic repeatedly in the past. Too many Israelis have died from Hamas terrorists who've exploded themselves with explosive vests.
I will note that Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper, has noted that 1 in 10 perhaps have been linked in some way to Hamas. 9 in 10 were doctors. One of them is the brother of Hani Almadoun, who works for the United Nations. I want to quickly play you a piece of video. This is the cousin.
That, please?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that these were men who were apprehended, taken prisoner in an area of combat. They're men of military age. It was a combat zone where there was heavy fighting. As a result, we were right to interrogate them all. We're looking at those responsible.
But who took those pictures, sir? Because I don't deny the right of the military to interrogate people that it's holding, but the Geneva Conventions are quite clear in saying that displaying people in a way that degrades their human dignity is a violation of the Geneva Conventions. So who took those pictures and who displayed them?
He's not going to answer the question, by the way, because he doesn't want to answer the question. Because then that means that he would literally have to throw one of the members of the IDF under the bus and show that Israel is literally committing human rights violations after human rights violations. And that means he has to admit to it.
Who distributed them?
We're taking steps to make sure that doesn't happen again. The stripping of them was necessary. But who took the pictures
in the first place?
We're trying to get to the bottom of that. It's not clear to me, and it's clear that it shouldn't have happened.
But it did happen. Mark, it did happen.
Let me play for you the relative of one of the people who was kidnapped on 10/7. This is the cousin of one of those people. Take a listen.
We are operating under the assumption that we are running out of time. You've just covered the renewed assault on southern Gaza. This is probably where my cousin is. This is where his phone was traced to. We know that the Israeli airstrikes are hurting the hostages, and now it's even more dense. It's impossible.
What is your answer to this young man, particularly given that Israeli officials have talked about doing things like filling the tunnels with seawater?
So his family is being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. And one can only feel for him and try to support him, because Hamas can do they're guilty of the most heinous violence, most atrocious.
That's projection. That's pure projection. Because what, the babies in ovens? That has not been substantiated. That has not been proven whatsoever. The sexual assault has not been proven, right? The beheading of babies has not been proven. There's no evidence for none of these things. So when they say, oh my God, Hamas did some horrible things, it's like, okay, where's the evidence? The thing is, they constantly say these things. Just because I say something doesn't make it true. You have to give me evidence of what you're talking about, right? Like, for instance, let's be real. If sexual assault actually happened at the hands of Hamas, and you have people who have claimed that sexual assault, where's the tested rape kits? Where are they? Where are they? And how do they match the DNA of people that are in Hamas? God, they think we're dumb.
But sir, it is Israel that is bombing the place where his family is. That is what I was asking you, because that is what he is asking. He's saying that his cousin is being held where Israel is bombing.
All I'm saying is we have to feel for this person. And
oh my God, this person's family member is literally being a hostage held, but Israel's bombing where they are and risking the life of that family member that's being held hostage. And instead of saying, well, we need to work to get that person out and preserve the lives of everybody in the area so that we can get that person back safely, Mark just says, oh, we have to feel for him. We just have to feel. Oh, we feel for you. The hell is wrong with this guy?
All the relatives who've got loved ones being held hostage by Hamas in Gaza, we can only feel and try to understand the pain they're going through. But as to Israel's policy, as you know, a week ago, with the help of President Biden, we had a humanitarian pause for hostages to be released. And the only reason Hamas agreed to that pause is because they were under incredible military pressure. They didn't suddenly release hostages because they became humanitarian.
May I ask you very quickly, we're very much out of time, sir. They're in my ear saying we're out of time. During the week-long pause, more than 100 civilian hostages were released, 81 Israelis, 23 Thai nationals, and 1 Filipino. How many have been released while Israel has been resuming bombing?
No, I think it's the opposite, though. I think the opposite.
But none have been released. They were released during the pause.
But the pause was agreed to.
You cannot release hostages while you're actively bombing. If you want the hostages, you literally have to do a ceasefire in order for the hostages to be released. Everybody keeps going, well, Hamas, they have to release the hostages. Okay, then stop bombing them so they can release the hostages. But if you're not willing to stop the bombing, that means you're not willing to have the hostages released. So then you don't give a shit about the hostages. Just say it. Just say what you actually want to say. Say what you mean. Stop being a politician and say what you actually mean. That you don't care about the hostages. Go ahead, Mark. Say it. Because a lot of us who are anti-Zionist, we already know that's what you want to say. Let everybody else know that you don't give a crap about the hostages. This is why a lot of Israelis on October 7th were actually killed by Israeli fire because they actually shot it on their own citizens because they don't care.
Because Hamas was desperate for a ceasefire. And it's possible that as we keep the military pressure on Hamas today, that will expedite a future release of hostages. Because Hamas, I started to say, you didn't let me finish the sentence. Hamas only releases hostages. They're not humanitarians. They only, as President Biden said, they respond to pressure. And the military pressure on Hamas that we're giving today, that can lead to the release of hostages tomorrow. There's no other way to work with these people. As President Biden.
But they were releasing the hostages already. They were releasing the hostages, and then Israel was giving hostages back. So for every 50 hostages that were held by Hamas, that they were giving back to Israel, Israel was giving 150. So 3-1. And who stopped the ceasefire? Who stopped the ceasefire? It wasn't Hamas. Israel violated the ceasefire. So if Hamas was actually giving over the hostages per the agreement, who violated that agreement? This guy, man, I'm telling you.
Biden said they understand pressure.
Let me ask you one final question, and then I really do have to go. There have been some statements by leaders in Israel, including your prime minister, referring to things like the Amalek, which in the Bible means killing the women, the children, and the oxen, referring the deputy mayor of Jerusalem saying that Palestinians should be buried like ants, buried alive, talking about using nuclear weapons in Gaza, flattening it, turning it into a parking lot, saying this will be a new Nakba. Those kind of statements by leaders in Israel, how should the world interpret them?
Before I let Pencil Neck answer, they said what they said. That's how they feel. There's no justifying it. There's nothing that this man can say that would justify. And what he's going to do is he's going to spin the justification for genocide. He's literally going to justify the genocide of 18,000 people by saying, well, we're just trying to get after Hamas. No, you're not. No, you're not.
So we will defeat Hamas. We have to dismantle its military machine, and we have to remove it from power in Gaza. That's for the elementary safety of Israelis. But in achieving that goal, it's not. In achieving that goal, it's not just good for Israel because we'll be safer and more secure. People won't have to live in fear of Hamas coming across, as I said before. But it's also good for the people of Gaza. It's good for the people of Gaza too, because
the people of Gaza being referred to as ants.
No, it's good for the people of Gaza too, because Hamas has been ruling the Gaza Strip for 16 years. And what is their record of government?
But y'all were doing this before 2006. Y'all were doing this before Hamas ever existed. And then y'all were doing this before Hamas was ever voted in. By the way, Hamas only won their election by a plurality. They didn't win by a majority. Number one. Number two, over half of the people who are living in Palestine are children. And they all weren't even born when Hamas was voted in. So now you're punishing an entire group of people, largely children, for something that they didn't even do, that they voted for. And on top of it, those elections were encouraged by Israel and the United States, but because the Palestinians voted for Hamas, that was an election that the United States and Israel and the West didn't want. That's the election that they didn't like. So therefore, they decided to militarily attack Hamas, even though it was a free and fair election that was held in Gaza. So now, because you guys didn't like the outcome of the election, you guys now decided to start bombing them.
Just poverty, misery, bloodshed, and they've been terrible for the people of Gaza. Both sides of the frontier, Israelis and Palestinians, will be better off without Hamas.
We are out of time. I'm not sure the people of Gaza would stand by those statements about themselves, but I'm going to leave it there.
They're increasingly coming out against Hamas. There's all this pent-up anger that we're seeing now because they hold Hamas accountable. I don't say they like us, Joy. I'm under no illusions. There's a historical animosity that I understand. But they are furious at Hamas for starting this war and for torpedoing the ceasefire and for bringing this destruction upon their society.
All right, well, we will have to leave it there. Please.
First of all, they didn't start this. This all started way back in 1948. So miss me with that bullshit. Number one. Number two, resisting illegal occupation is legal under international law. And on top of it, the Palestinian people, they're more upset about bombing and killing their families. I don't think it's a choice necessarily by what Hamas did. I think it was the bombing of the civilians. I think that's the reason why they're upset. So that's who he is. That's who's advising Netanyahu, making justifications for a genocide that's happening within Gaza. Let me share something with you guys because I saw this and Joy Reid had brought that up, and I was just like, you know what? Let me share this as well because they're talking about, well, we have to make sure that they don't have, suicide vests, right? Let me share this with you guys. Using an attack dog, Israeli women soldiers forced Palestinian women to undress. During a Hebron raid, 5 female family members were forced to undress while threatened by a dog from the K-9 unit and the soldiers' rifles. This was in September, before October 7th. Before October 7th. Says 2 masked Israeli women soldiers with rifles and an attack dog forced 5 female members of a Palestinian family to strip naked, each one separately, in the West Bank city of Hebron in July. The soldiers threatened to release the dog if the women did not comply. Says during the raid on family's home, male soldiers searched the male family members but did not require them to take off their clothes. The army had intelligence that there were weapons in the home, and the Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson told Haaretz that an M16 rifle and ammunition were found there, requiring a search of the house's other residents. A total of 26 people, including 15 children from 4 months to 17 years old, live in 3 adjoining apartments in the Ajlani's family's home in South Hebron. The family says that on July 10th at 1:30 a.m., around 50 soldiers massed around the house accompanied by at least 2 dogs. So this is not anything new. So let me share this. Okay. It says the children were screaming in fear the entire time. Amal told the soldiers to pull the dog back because the children were afraid of it. Then she took off the rest of her clothes. The children also had to witness their mother being ordered to turn around while naked as she sobbed over the humiliation. About 10 minutes later, she and the children were taken out of the room, pale and trembling. So that's what happened before October 7th. When Palestinian women were literally forced to undress completely in front of their children. This was the matriarch of the family. The mothers were also forced to undress completely in front of their kids by female IDF soldiers. So when it comes to how the IDF treats people, you mean to tell me that they're one side is the only one is doing the atrocities? Allegedly, the Palestinian resistance is doing the atrocities when there are literally recorded accounts that are actually happening on the ground. I'm gonna share this too because I think this is also important. And shout out to my comrade Nick of RBN. I think I shared it. I at least liked it. I know I liked it at least. Let me share this as well. I could have swore. Sorry guys, I thought I had put it up. Okay. Let me grab it really quick. Because I wanted to share this also with you guys because a lot of people don't realize this. Here we go. Okay. So I'm gonna share this with you guys. These are a bunch of headlines that a lot of people just don't know. And people, when people talk about, oh my God, they're, Palestinian resistance, they're committing atrocities. When I say it's projection, this is what I mean. It says, so says MMA. Nick said the IDF raped sexually assaults so much, Israel had a hard time preventing them from R-wording each other. It's discussing how Zionists projected their R-word culture onto Palestinians. Says here, female IDF soldiers were quote unquote pimped to terror inmates, prisoner commander said. Says guards said in 2018 they were put in close contact with prisoners, ordered to be ogled and assaulted in exchange for concessions, but probe was closed and claims were buried. This one says IDF soldier charged with sexual assault of 3 female subordinates. Second lieutenant faces 11 counts of sodomy and forcible indecent acts as he allegedly committed using his command authority. This one's from Haaretz. Says soldier kills herself after reporting she was sexually assaulted. I have to be careful with the words I use. Now Israeli army probes suspicious of negligence. The blurb says, despite reporting the sexual assault on the night it happened, the soldier was not taken to get treatment. Her complaint was not passed on, and her access to a weapon. Another one from Haaretz. 90% of sexual assault cases in Israel close without indictment. Study finds. Reports from the Association of Sexual Assault Crisis Centers in Israel finds 40% of increase in number of Israelis reporting sexual assault. Says 3 Israeli soldiers charged with sexual assaulting, sodomizing female comrade. Indictment says Air Force men filmed the assault. Victim was crying, but one defendant says it was consensual. 4th soldier to be charged. This is from the Jerusalem Post. Says 40 cases of sexual assault reported in the IDF. Says here, it says Israeli soldiers accused of sexually assaulting an 11-year-old. Allegation erodes public respect for armed forces. 17 military personnel and 5 civilians questioned. So even kids. So when I say that is pure projection, this is what I mean. And you guys can go ahead and look all that up yourself. Go on the Google machine and look it up. So whenever people who are Zionists who are defending what Israel is doing, always check their facts. Look it up. Because what they did, even to their own people, is horrific. So I'm going to head to the chat really quick so that we can move on. I know y'all got a lot to say. And then we'll move on to the primary story. Thank you so much, very much to Bryce. Bryce says, don't forget to like the stream. Yes, please, and thank you. Chris H says, you can see in this interview with joyless Joanne Reed that they are learning the hard way that their propaganda is breaking down and their dog whistles and trigger words are failing. Yeah, the thing is that despite what Joanne Reed is doing now, she's a little bit better on this subject. She's still part of the propaganda machine that upholds a lot of what, Zionism has perpetuated even within our own country. So So the damage, a lot of it's already been done. And the thing is that the damage is so profound that they have no choice now. They have to kind of go, well, Israel, you're not really making your case that you're humanitarian. So now there has to be at least a couple people that speak out, because we're all sitting here pissed off and we're all looking at Israel like, the hell's wrong with you? You can't hide it anymore. So yeah, thank you so very much, Chris. Serena says, is that why Bibi turned down a full hostage exchange? How can he explain that without sounding like an entire circus that is? Because it was never about the hostages. Look, they don't give a crap about the hostages. They give a crap about the land. What is destabilization? Destabilization is a tool that's used by regimes to frighten, which is also terrorism, the people within an area, so they clear out. So they're no longer there. So you can take hold of the land without any dispute. So you can take hold of the resources without any dispute. There's nobody to say, oh, this is my land, you guys have to pay me, or this is my land, you guys can't sell it. Nothing. Or if you bomb them and that's their land, well, guess what? They're dead. So now they no longer can lay claim to the land. So now you have that land free and clear because that land was destroyed, or that property was destroyed, and that person was taken out. Once you do that, then you have access to that resources, which means those resources are now yours. And so that natural gas, that oil that's off the coast of Gaza and Palestine, now they have access to that. That canal that they want to build through Gaza, now they can do it. Because guess what? They don't have to be challenged by anybody living in that area, that region. So they can send in their construction crews, burrow that area out, install that canal. That's how it goes. So that's the purpose for destabilizing the area. That's the purpose for the bombing. That's the purpose for the shelling. This is also the purpose for taking out all the little kids in these hospitals and schools, because that means if they survive, that means they grow up. And if they grow up, that means they can challenge and say, this is not your land, this is ours. So the goal is also to destroy the future generations that could come up outside of that too. In fact, this is basically the story about Moses all over again. The only difference is it's not the Egyptian Pharaoh that's killing all the firstborn sons of Egypt. It's Netanyahu destroying all the kids in Palestine, all the kids in Gaza. And what they don't want is one little kid that's Gazan to come up and liberate the people. Because if that's the case, then guess what? They ultimately lose. Desert Mansa says this man is an awful representative of a human. Agreed. Absolutely. Jenna says, I'm just going to steal your house or someone else will, is good for the people of Gaza. It's crazy. Dwayne says Mark Regev is the worst scumbag on earth along with his boss. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. You guys ain't lying. Mark by Mark A. Foster, PhD, says, No one should be surprised. Sanders has always been a Zionist. We're going to get into that in a second. So thank you very much for that. Zoe says Israel literally didn't even observe the ceasefire. No, they didn't. In fact, they violated the ceasefire right just a couple hours after it began. They did not care about ceasefire. Red Dove Rising says since 48, actually before, Israel has been working towards becoming better than a certain Austrian, and the country is not even theirs. Yep. I'm trying to be like Mustache Man. Zombie in the Air says most moral army, folks. Yep, they claim to be the most moral army, and yet they have all these things on their record. Crazy how that happens, right? Brian Shea says Hebron is where the keffiyehs are made. Yeah, and it's interesting because I want a keffiyeh, but I just can't afford one right now. I'm broke like that. But I really want one. I would definitely wear it on stream. Oh my gosh. I would wear it on stream. I would wear it out of the house. Plus, I mean, especially I would get the black and white one because black and white goes with everything. So yeah, I would definitely do. Red Dove Rising says they've been stuff like you mean they've been doing stuff like that for forever? Yeah. Yeah. Dwayne says children held in an Israeli prison for no charges are routinely, and you guys can see the rest. Yep. Unfortunately, that happens too. KD Lewis is in the chat. Good to see you, KD. He says, one of the most common and self-snitching tools of the oppressor is projection-based propaganda. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that. Lou says, Israel is also one of the principal destinations for women and children trafficked into sexual slavery. And it's funny because all the people who talk about child trafficking, they never want to talk about what's going on in Israel. They never talk about it. It's like, okay, you guys want to talk about what's going on in Honduras. You guys want to talk about what's going on in Guatemala. You guys want to talk about what's coming across the southern border, child trafficking, blah, blah, blah. But what about the people who are convicted of sexual assault that are fleeing to Israel and now they can't be extradited back to the United States? What about them? But we can't talk about that. Dear God. All right, let me check and see if there's one more that I didn't get to call on. Okay. Miguel says keffiyehs from here, boy. I'm sorry, hi, boy, are constantly restocking because due to the high demand, they're quickly sold out. Good. Good. Oh, by the way, let me share this with you guys because I saw. Let me see. Yeah. So if you guys haven't, if you guys have not, I'm gonna share. If you guys can afford a keffiyeh, buy one. Buy one and wear it. I'm gonna share with you guys this really quick, just so that you guys are aware. This is keffiyeh.org. Where they actually create them in Palestine. So if you guys have not, go ahead, and if you guys would like to purchase one, here is the link to purchase a keffiyeh from Palestine. Look, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if you guys can wear one for me. All right, because I can't afford one right now. Wear a keffiyeh for me. You're right, not for me, but you know, wear one because I don't have the ability to wear one right now. Right? Wear one for the Palestinian people so that people realize that their lives matter. So please, if you guys can, they're still building them, and these are literally made in Palestine. So go ahead and do that, because these people who are enduring these atrocities, let them sell out all the time. I want them to be backlogged. That's how much I want it to be supported, right? So yeah, go ahead. Now, if you guys have not, go ahead and give the stream a like. Go ahead and like the stream. If you guys have not, you guys can go to my Substack, jaybefaunt.substack.com, so you guys are notified for whenever I upload clips, have articles, or live streams. So, also, thank you so very much to everybody who's a patron on Patreon. If you guys have not, yes, I get patrons on Patreon as well as coffee for, if you guys would like to support the Kent channel, thank you so very much. My channel is demonetized, so if you guys would like to, you guys can donate to Patreon or to PayPal, whichever you choose. Thank you so very much for all of your support. It means the most to me. And also, if you guys have not, you guys can become patrons on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. And just wanted to give a shout out to our newest patron on Patreon. We have Eclectic. So thank you so very much for becoming a patron on Patreon. This means the most for me. So this is literally keeping the lights on. And so that you guys are aware of the tiers on Patreon, let's take a look there so that you guys are aware of what you get. So if you guys become patrons on Patreon, you can become JB members. Then there's also Solidarity. There is Jaybefaunters. I'm sorry, Comrade. Then you have Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, and Mega Jaybefaunters as well. So thank you so very much to all of you. And also, I'm also doing fundraising for mutual aid for Orlando RBN mutual aid chapter. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go to the Cash App to donate at $ Orlando RBN. And we're trying to raise $3,000 primarily for grocery gift cards and toiletries. And so thank you so very much for your contributions on that endeavor as well. Now, no permanent ceasefire. Bernard. Wait, did it go out? So, Bernie, he continuously showed me is what I like to call a Democrat with an I next to his name. Everybody's like, oh my God, he's an independent. No, he's not. If he's truly an independent, he would be working out, challenging them left and right, but he doesn't. He does not challenge power. He concedes to it. So there was a recent showing of Bernie Sanders, and he talked about a ceasefire. And this just shows the type of person Bernie Sanders is. And then after that, I'm going to show you guys something that really just took me for a loop. So Bernie Sanders is getting respect from AIPAC. And if anybody knows AIPAC is, or AIPAC, is they are the Israel lobby. One of the top Israel lobbies in the nation. So this just shows you who Bernie Sanders really is. And before I show this, I just want to say it's just like what Dr. Maya Angelou said, when someone tells you who they are the first time, believe them. And Bernie is showing us who he really is. Do you believe him? It's very short. Let's go over it.
In terms of a permanent ceasefire, I don't know how you could have a permanent ceasefire with Hamas, who has said before October 7th and after October 7th that they want to destroy Israel. They want a permanent war. I don't know how you have a permanent ceasefire with an attitude like that.
So he's doubling down on basically saying, no, we don't want a permanent ceasefire, even though a permanent ceasefire would save lives. So Bernie Sanders does not want to save lives. You heard that right. That's not some spin. That's not me being hyperbolic. He does not want to save lives. Because, like I said earlier in the last segment, in order to actually exchange hostages, you need a ceasefire. If you're actually interested in exchanging hostages and releasing hostages, then you would do a ceasefire. But that's not what Bernie is about. Bernie doesn't want it. And he's sounding a lot like AIPAC right now. AIPAC, whatever. Let's go over it just a little bit.
In terms of a permanent ceasefire, I don't know how you could have a permanent ceasefire with Hamas, who has said before October 7th and after October 7th that they want to destroy Israel. They want a permanent war. I don't know.
Actually, they never said that. How do I know? Well, I'm going to read this. H-word affirms that its conflict is with the Zionist project, not with the Jews because of their religion. H-word does not wage a struggle against the Jews because they are Jewish, but wages a struggle against the Zionists who occupy Palestine. Yet, it is the Zionists who constantly identify Judaism and the Jews with their own colonial project and illegal entity. That's from their own charter. Basically, they just want the illegal occupation to end. It's not something that they want to do forever. It's not something that they want to do in the first place. That's what they say. Let's continue what Bernie says.
Know how you have a permanent ceasefire with an attitude like that.
So that's not how their attitude is. It's literally in their charter. So that being the case, then why else would you not want a ceasefire? By the way, it is legal by international law to resist illegal occupation. That's exactly what it is. Now, let me share with you guys this. Even former Bernie Sanders delegates are saying, Bernie, you need to be for a permanent ceasefire. It says over 300 Bernie Sanders DNC delegates calling him to support a ceasefire in Gaza. This was a month ago. So let's take a look. It says hundreds of former delegates to the Democratic National Convention for Senator Bernie Sanders during his 2020 and 2016 presidential campaigns are calling on the senator to demand an Israeli ceasefire in Gaza as progressives and the left grow increasingly frustrated with this refusal to do so. And a letter first reported by The Intercept was signed by 330 delegates who are urging Sanders to back a ceasefire, support to end Israel's blockade and occupation of Gaza, and call for an end to U.S. funding of Israel's genocidal war against Palestinians. They also asked Sanders to introduce companion legislation to House lawmakers' ceasefire resolution, which lawmakers put forward last month with 18 co-sponsors. Quote, your presidential campaigns and your legislative work in the Senate have not only reshaped the national discourse regarding Israel's violent occupation of Palestine, but also bravely confronted Congress's unchecked support for Israel in terms of military aid and weapons. We, the undersigned 330 delegates from your 2016 and 2020 campaigns, write to ask you to stand against war and violence once more. End quote. It says, indeed, in the past, Senator Sanders has been one of the only voices in Congress, perhaps the only voice in the Senate, to criticize the U.S.'s relationship with Israel. Just in April, Senator Sanders sent a letter to President Biden and Secretary Blinken calling for the administration to undertake a shift in U.S. policy regarding the nation's support for Israel and to ensure that the U.S.'s endless weapons transfer to Israel weren't being used to conduct gross violations of human rights. Says while all the other signatories of that letter, including lawmakers like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, have now called for a ceasefire in Gaza. However, Sanders has not, and his refusal to call for a ceasefire has been viewed as a major letdown to many left-wing Americans, many of whom cite Sanders as an inspiration for their participation in the political sphere. So I want to share this as well. So this is something I want to bring out as well. This person says, hey, is this it? No. Okay. It says Sanders' refusal to call for a ceasefire has been seemingly inconsistent with his own views on the issue. In an op-ed in The Guardian earlier this month, Sanders wrote that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is dire and getting worse by the minute, and that a stop to the bombing is critical to save innocent lives and secure a safe return of the hostages. He added that the conditions in occupied Palestine were already horrific and inhumane before Israel's current siege. So he said that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is dire and getting worse by the minute, and to stop the bombing is critical to save lives and secure the safe return of hostages. My question to Senator Sanders is, what changed? Why do you feel so differently now? Because apparently you obviously flip-flopped on your own position. You said you thought a ceasefire would be right. You thought that would be the correct position. And yet you flipped. What does the Israel lobby have over your head? What do they got on you? I'm curious. I'm curious about that. But yes, Bernie Sanders actually contradicted himself. So when people talk about Bernie's consistent, he's not. He hasn't been consistent for quite some time. Let me see. Now, for anybody who thinks, oh my God, October 7th, October 7th, October 7th, let me share something with you guys. And I honestly really wish Bernie would read this, but he probably would never, because he's like, I don't want to read that. This is out of the Electronic Intifada. If you guys have not, then I highly suggest you guys bookmark this publication because it is valuable. And I just shared it in the chat for you guys. So it says Israeli violence escalated in the lead up to October 7th. Let me enlarge this, just make that a little bit bigger. All right, so that everybody can see. All right. So since October 7th, whenever I've been interviewed by Western media outlets, I'm always asked one question. Do you condemn Hamas attacks against Israel on 7th of October? It's as if the conflict between Israel and Palestine began on 7th of October, not 75 years ago. The Western media's condemnation of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood have been uniform and provide only a limited view of the conflict. These media outlets have situated Al-Aqsa Flood entirely in an Israeli context of surprise and shock, while with little understanding of the depth of the conflict. So let me go here. It says Israeli escalations before Al-Aqsa Flood. So this is before October 7th. It says the current Israeli government led by Netanyahu was formed in December 2022 and described by Western Arab and Israeli media outlets as the most right-wing Israeli government ever to hold office. Under Netanyahu's leadership, religious parties forcefully returned to the political arena with significant influence. Opposition leader Yair Lapid even warned about the potential risk posed by the new government, remarking that Israel could turn into a halakhic state, meaning one ruled by Jewish law. So, just as an aside, when we talk about, like, for instance, the evangelicals, the far-right Christians who are within, let's say, the Republican Party, and they're trying to turn the United States into a theocracy, well, that's the Christian version of basically what they're trying to do in Israel. Instead of it being a secular government, then it would be a theocratic government ruled by Jewish law, versus here in the United States, it will be basically ruled by what they say Christian law. All right, so let's continue. It says Israeli escalations have intensified in the West Bank, Jerusalem, and Gaza since the formation of the Netanyahu government. From the 1st of January to September 3rd, to the 30th of September 2023, the Israeli army and settlers killed 234 Palestinians, including 45 children in the occupied Palestinian territory, according to the rights group Al-Mezan. And before October 7th, the total number of Palestinians imprisoned in Israel was 4,746. October 7th was not a unmitigated, unprovoked attack. It was a response. It was a response to what Israel and the IDF have been doing to Palestinians for years. So when people are like, oh my God, do you condemn October 7th? Ask them if they condemn October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, September 30th, 29th, 28th, 27th, 26th, 25th, and keep on going back. Do they condemn those? Do they condemn what happened in 2014 when thousands of Palestinians were killed? Do they condemn that? Always ask that question. Always respond with the question. It says September of 2023, Ben-Gvir imposed a new order to reduce the visits received by Palestinian prisoners from once a month to once every 2 months. He had previously implemented retaliatory measures against prisoners, depriving them of fresh bread and revoking many of the modest rights they had achieved through protest. Furthermore, Israeli occupation authorities have even filled in water wells in the West Bank to push Palestinians off their land. Journalist Levy described this as one of the most diabolical deeds of the occupation. So let me share this with you guys, because the Palestinian resistance was at their wits' end before October 7th. This is out of Haaretz. This is from Gordon Levy. We even destroyed their water wells. Oh man, let me see. I forgot. This is paywall. I can get around that. All right. So let's do. Sorry, guys. Let me share this really quick so you guys can see. Where'd it go? Oh, it's right there. All right. So here is the article. We even destroy their water wells. That, see there? That's a cement truck. And that's their water wells that they are for Palestinians. It says the cement mixer vomited out the grayish liquid, which made a noise as it flowed noisily into the water wells, clogging them. Standing there were soldiers who served as guards, the civil administration employees who devised this evil plan, the laborers who carried it out, and the peasants who saw their sustenance snuffed out for eternity. The soldiers tried to disperse them as one might shoo stray dogs. The concrete continued to pour out, and the people of the civil administration verified that it covered everything. Soon, all 3 wells were sealed. It happened last Wednesday, south of Hebron, near Farwar refugee camp. It was the work of the devil, one of the most diabolical deeds of the occupation, and the competition is fierce. To the water wells, the spring that pushes the mountain. There my love will still find spring water, groundwater, and river water. Naomi Shermer wrote in 1982 in El Barot Hemayim. How lovely it is to sing that the wells of public sing-alongs, and how Zionist this song is, like all her songs. So basically, they did this. It says Arab hatred, apartheid, brutality, and now even an evil now cover the spring and groundwater and the false love for the land of Israel. Those who plug up farmers' wells are motivated by pure evil, and anyone who chokes off spring water hates the land. says evil apartheid has many faces. This clogging up of wells in which no blood was shed and no people were arrested is one of the ugliest. No security lie or pretext can hide the concrete covered wells, nor can the excuse of law and order only pure and evil. Even if it's not the most horrific of the crimes committed every day in its territories, it's one of the ugliest, sealing up water wells. So they literally stopped the water from flowing in Palestine. And this also happened before October 7th. Israel has been escalating this themselves. Says Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, who once stated that there's no such thing as Palestinian people, called in March 2023 for the Palestinian town of Hawara to be wiped out following attacks on Palestinians and their property launched by Israeli settlers in February. The months before the Al-Aqsa flood witnessed escalation upon it by Israel. First one, Israeli soldiers threatening Palestinian women in Hebron with attack dogs and forcing them to strip naked. We already covered that earlier. Israeli extremists targeting Christians in Jerusalem, spitting at them as they left a church on the Via Dolorosa. Israeli settlements surged with 28,208 units given the go-ahead in the West Bank and East Jerusalem in 2022, a 30% increase from 2021. By the way, Hamas is only in Gaza. They're not in the West Bank. So therefore, the attacks in the West Bank, why are they attacking them? Shall we continue? It says Israel raids on Al-Aqsa Mosque have escalated under Netanyahu, driven by right-wing ministers. It is impossible to list all the Israeli escalations and violations in the lead up to October 7th. Home demolitions, imprisonments, humiliations, and killings. There's simply too many to name. So, there is a complete and total disregard of the lives of Palestinians because ultimately, what happened on October 7th was just an excuse to continue to destroy not only Palestinians, but to destroy their spirit and the soul of Palestine so that Palestine will never live again. It's ultimately what it's about. And so the fact that Bernie Sanders is saying, oh, well, this is going on, Hamas wants to continue this. No, that's you have it flipped. Israel wants to continue this until Palestine is wiped off the map. And so when there's no more Palestinians, then that's when Israel will stop. Bernie, where's your humanity? Where is it? So did you guys like the stream? Go ahead and give the stream a like. Push me out into algorithm. Push me, Jay. Push me. Let's go to the chat. All right. Jacqueline says, I'm sorry, but we're all adults in this channel. JB shouldn't be restricting his use of language like this. Unfortunately, with the tube, they want, okay, here's how it works. In order in order for you to be able to not be, in order for you to not be blocked or throttled, which I already am, and in order for you to not risk losing your channel, you have to be suitable for advertisement. And if advertisers don't find you suitable because of the language that you use, then YouTube feels like they would lose money. So that's how it works. And more advertisers are becoming more finicky based on the language that you use. So you have to pretty much go from rated R language to PG-13, from PG-13 to PG. So you have to be very careful. Because if not, then they will take your channel away from you. So unfortunately, that's how it is. Because advertisers. Just let you know how it is. Luz says Israel is one of the principal destinations for women in. Oh, yeah, I already read that. Okay. Mark, oh, this is a good one. Mark says, well, look at what happened to Mehdi for being honest on MSNBC. Yep. Show got cut. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Miguel says Yemen is ruining Israel's canal plans. Oh, man. Yemen has been making me laugh. So Lou says what's terrifying is that Netanyahu and Regev are relatively moderate in as much as Israeli politicians forming policy on the Palestinians is concerned, which is sad. Desmond Manson says Bernie needs to retire and get a haircut. I need a haircut. KD says he's a effing liar and makes my skin crawl. Now I know how that stupid body movement studier felt. Yeah. Good to see you, Worry. Nice to have you in the chat. Janice says, because many burners are politically illiterate, they honestly believe his position is firm to far left instead of center to center right. Yeah. Bernie is on the right on this issue. Zoe says the fact that Palestinian boy lost his ability to walk in Bernie's state and can't even call for a ceasefire tells you all you need to know. Yep. Because he could be calling for peace. A ceasefire is literally calling for peace. And Bernie doesn't even want to do that. Extra Boya says, water maroon. Absolutely. Creative Experiment says Bernie Sanders never canceled a military contract in his life. He is pro-military, called Maduro and Assad brutal dictators. Katie says he's as consistent as a random drug test. Oh, gosh. Janice Anderson says nothing changed. His position didn't change. He was just paying lip service before. When rubber meets the road, he's always sides with the empire. Yep. Lou says, just say it, JB. The batshit insane ones. Oh, gosh. Man, a lot of us are just... Wow. Oh, Zombie in the Air. Thank you. Did RFK ever look into the wells like he was saying he would? Rhetorical question, of course. You, Zombie, you know that RFK did not look into them about them wells. And even if he did, he ain't saying jack squat about it. You want to know why? Because he wants that Israel money. He wants that Zionist money. That's exactly what it is. He does not care about what's going on to the Palestinians. And I'll be the first to say it. Look, he is just like Bernie. He's a Democrat with an I next to his name. And also, if he's standing behind Israel, where Israel is doing all this, he is also not anti-war. He's not anti-imperialist. He is just your straight, run-of-the-mill Democrat. No respect for RFK, especially on these positions. RFK Jr., horrible. Horrible. All right, so Serenia says, I fear an RFK Jr. presidency. He's more unhinged on supporting Israel than Biden and Trump. Sad. Okay, so I do have a final story that I didn't put in here. The only reason why I didn't put in here is because it's kind of something funny to laugh at. And I figure because I talk about a lot of deep stuff all the time, I figured we should be able to laugh and have something funny. So you guys want to laugh at the end of the stream? Let's laugh. Oh, wait. I also want to share this before we get to that. This something that threw me for a loop. Look, as far as Bernie's concerned, Bernie taking a position that he does, things are like Twilight Zone. Let me share this really quick before we move on to what I wanted to end with, because I gotta share this with you guys too. Geraldo Rivera did a Uno reverse, and I am just like, what in the hell just happened? Geraldo Rivera further to the left than Bernie? Say it ain't so.
People have to recognize what Gaza Strip is. It's one of the most menacing, melancholy places on earth that I've ever reported from. It's a 20-mile long strip of desert by the sea. 2 million Palestinians trapped inside by a brutal blockade. Everyone and everything going into and out of Gaza is controlled by Israel. Electricity, fuel, airspace, ports, cell phone service. The fact that the United States of America is providing Israel many of the weapons Israel is using today to kill Palestinian civilians without even demanding a ceasefire, that makes us complicit in an ongoing crime against humanity.
The hell? Geraldo Rivera? I mean, he cooked. Right? Terry, like what? The dude cooked. He ate and left no crumbs. Geraldo Rivera? Decent take on Palestine? All right. Okay, let a brother find out. Dwayne says Geraldo used to be a real reporter once. Yeah, I see. Bryce said, laughing. Miguel said he cooked and ate. Yeah. Mark says Geraldo Rivera used to hold those views when he worked on Channel 7 WABC in New York City. Oh, wow. Serena says they activated his trap card. Oh, gosh. Isn't that wild? Man, I was not expecting that. Creator Experience says, who's the next Jerry Springer? Oh, my gosh. So, yeah, I saw that. I was just like, what in the world? Geraldo Rivera. I was like, oh, snap. Say it ain't so. Let a brother find out. All right. So I saw this, and I really just wanted to share this with y'all because I thought this was funny. Let me see. Let me see. Oh gosh. Hang on. Let me see. Oh. Oh. Ay. Let's see. You guys are gonna laugh. All right. So you ready? Let's get into it. This is shared by More Perfect Union. Oh Lord. It says rich guy discovers that workers aren't motivated by making rich people richer. Panera founder says employees today aren't motivated by the idea of making money for shareholders. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Oh my goodness. Can you believe it? Hold up. I found the article. We're going to get into this because this is hilarious. The hubris of this guy. The hubris. Says Panera founder says employees today aren't motivated by the idea of making money for shareholders. Nobody cares. Where? Okay, hold up. It says high up in the business world where decisions can be molded and shaped by the needs and demands of major investors and shareholders, it can be easy to forget, well, most average people don't really care about that, Panera's founder said. TikTok users have been making popular satirical videos about that idea, jokingly, sarcastically, that they wake up every day motivated to make more money for their company's shareholders. I really wasn't feeling like going to work today, says Germs24. It says in the voiceover on one of his TikTok videos, which shows him getting ready to leave work. But then I remembered the shareholders. Everything had purpose again. Everything had life. And I had everything I ever wanted, knowing that I would be meeting the needs of the shareholders. And you know what? For me, that made it all worth it. Jerem said, I love keeping money in their pockets. Hashtag work. Hashtag work meme. Hashtag shareholders. Oh, gosh. Says another video from user that corporate lawyer shows himself enthusiastically waking up and working fervently to Hillary Duff's What Dreams Are Made Of with the caption, waking up pumped to ready to make the shareholders money. Oh, my gosh. Says beyond not pretending to be motivated by shareholders, some younger workers have been vocal about wanting certain changes to work culture, like a better work-life balance. At least one founder and ex-CEO agrees that the idea of boosting shareholders' returns isn't likely to be a motivating factor. Key motivator to workers these days. Ron Shaik, Panera Bread's founder and former longtime CEO, stressed how important it is for management and members of the C-suite to empathize with their employees and better understand what can get their buy-in to the company's mission. Says no employee ever wakes up and says, I'm so excited. I made another penny a share today for Panera's shareholders. Nobody cares. You can't care whether your CEO comes or goes. Boy, oh boy. Nobody gives a crap about the shareholders because ultimately the shareholders don't give a crap about us. So yeah, make sure that if you guys know about, inform people about things like worker-owned businesses and things like that. And if you guys live in a ballot initiative state, try pushing for worker co-ops, because that honestly would help, at least in some ways. Workers owning the means of production. What a concept. So yeah, I just thought that, I found that to be funny. I was just like, man, let me show this to y'all. So if you guys have not, then you guys can also subscribe to the Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com, so you guys get email notifications so that you guys are aware of whenever I do go live or upload clips. Go ahead and give the stream a like on your way out as I finish up on this beautiful Tuesday. And if you guys have not, then you guys can donate to Orlando RBN so that we can raise money for grocery gift cards and toiletries. For we are doing raising money for our next action. So thank you so very much. And thanks to all the patrons on Patreon and Coffee, as well as anybody that sends me anything by way of PayPal. Thank you so very much to all of you for your contributions and supporting the channel. So going to head on out. What am I going to eat? I have no idea what to eat, but I got some things to do. I got a lot of stuff to do for today, but thank you so very much. Oh, by the way, I will be getting into the reading of chapter 5 of Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. So we'll be getting into that later this week. So I'll be getting into that and trying to finish that up. And yeah. So thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. Like I always tell you guys at the end of my streams, what am I about to say, people? Y'all know. Water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them, drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny, watch something hilarious, read something hilarious, or watch something and read something inspiring, because joy is revolutionary. And keep yourselves joyful. And mwah, forehead kisses to all of you, because why? Because you matter that much to me. Love you. Hearts. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.